Hey, everybody, welcome back to Life by the Horns, where we boldly tackle life's terrain. We're excited to have you back once again. We've got Blake here and Dustin. And today, I think we want to switch gears a little bit. I think that you guys will really enjoy listening to this. Maybe it resonates with you, maybe as a business owner, father, partner, entrepreneur, whatever it might be. But today, I'm really excited because, gearing up towards Q4 of the year. Things are crazy. Things are hectic. I think in all aspects of life. But what I really wanted to jump in today was, finding out a little bit more about you, Dustin, and sort of what's going on at the moment. Kind of walk us through, man. Like, are there any personal challenges that are relevant to you at this point in time that are affecting your life, both maybe negatively, but also positively as well?
Yeah. Full transparency to anybody listening to this. I deferred yesterday from doing this podcast because I really had to marinate on it last night and how much I really wanted to share. But yeah, I've been going through it, man. So I have been, for whatever reason, knowing that there was like something or some things like deep down that I needed to figure out. And I have had a couple of coaches, and they've had some positive impacts. But it wasn't until probably earlier this year that I started connecting with somebody that I've actually had on the show. And we've had coffee, a couple of lunches, and every time I leave one of those, sessions or whatever you want to call it, he always leaves me with this feeling of being lighter and heavier at the same time. And the lightness comes from the fact that he's asked some questions that are making me do some soul searching that I know that I have to do. The heaviness comes from the fact that it's not fun. And so recently, what I've been working on is really just trying to dig in to traumas that I've had in my life and kind of come out the other side and then deconstruct some of those like beliefs and armor and coping mechanisms, that we have. And as I've started going down this journey, it's just wild what now seems like small things have made such crazy impacts on who I am now, both good and bad. Many would perceive them as good, but the reality is it's just a coping mechanism for something I experienced that I just wasn't ready for.
Why do you feel like you were at the point where you needed outside help?
I didn't like that no matter what I accomplished, it just was never enough. There was no fulfillment from it whatsoever. I mean, I've done 75 hard now 5 times. And, you think when you do it once, like, yeah, this is, and Andy would be pissed off for me saying this, but like, it's not the end of the journey. You just keep going. But it's not sustainable. And then, you reach a level of what you would perceive as success. And then once you're there, you're like, all right, I feel nothing. And then I just realized that, and it's definitely part of just my personality as a whole. I'm either all in to something at a very unhealthy level or all out at a very unhealthy level. And even Nick from Rise Athletics, I mean, the earlier part of this year, I was on like day 97 of 75 hard and then phase 1. And every day was doing more and more and more and more. And he's like, dude, like, you're going to break. And then finally I broke, and he was like, man, I hate to say this, but I told you so. And then as I broke, I just went down a dark path. And then when we'd been chatting recently, he's like, I mean, I'm trying to teach you temperance in your life. He's like, you can't go this hard all the time. Like, it's not sustainable. And what I realized is when I wasn't going really hard, all of these demons that were in me were rearing themselves in a very nasty manner, basically like, you don't deserve this, and saying all these, negative things. And then recently, a friend of mine even shared, because I've got another great friend and mentor that I'm kind of navigating this through, and he's like, we all do this, but when you take your demons and try to pack them away, they just go into the basement and lift weights, and then when they come back, they're just stronger. And I'm like, damn. And so, yeah, that's kind of been the journey. It's just I keep seeing the same repeated behaviors and things going on. And I'm like, man, like I know other people are obviously like this, but like there's got to be a better life or better journey. And I remember when Jake was here on the podcast quite a while back, he talked about the success ladder. And he's like, the crazy thing is a lot of men climb and climb and climb and climb. And then you think you get to where you want to go. But the reality is happiness was at the bottom. It's inside of you. It's not at the top of that ladder. And a lot of times we put that ladder on the wrong wall. And so, yeah, that's, in a nutshell, kind of what I'm going through.
Yeah, well, first, man, I'm sorry to hear that you're going through that. I think not a midlife crisis, but I think that we all come across, those crossroads at many different times in our life. Did you feel like you weren't getting, I guess, the sense of fulfillment like from your family or the acknowledgement from your family, or was it more just from yourself deep within that you just weren't feeling that sense of acknowledgement?
No, I wouldn't put it on my family. I think honestly, a lot of your family's response is a reflection of you and your energy. And I definitely was feeling, the fact that I was consistently reaching out to people and just looking for more help. Like in the last 2 years, I've surrounded myself by a very small group of people who, at least on the outside, seem like incredible individuals, because I know I needed some of that like shining light in my life. But then as I've started kind of going down this path and realizing so many of these things about me, I'm like, man, everything that I am right now makes sense, because it's all just some bright, shiny armor for a bunch of bullshit that I've packed deep down in. And to your point of being sorry I'm going through this, I'm honestly not. Like it's rough, but as at least it was shared with me the other day as I was unpacking some of this stuff. They shared with me that, yeah, I know this seems like it sucks, but hey, this was inevitable. Like this was going to happen to you because you haven't fixed these things. And it's not going to be fun to go down this journey. But the best part of it is that there's a second part of life and you're still stuck in the first.
So I don't want you to get deep into detail. You don't even have to share detail at all, because I don't want to be super vague for our audience here. But like, what are sort of the things that you have to fix?
Yeah, I don't mind sharing. This hell, I may even get emotional, but any time we go, and I'll identify a trauma in the best way I can. Anytime you go through something in life that you're not emotionally capable of handling, your body, you develop some sort of like psychological coping mechanism to it. And I remember back in like 7th grade, man, and this is probably not even where it started, but this is one of them for sure. Back in 7th grade, I was short, fat, but had a great personality. So I was, friends with all the, cute little 7th grade girls. And one of them I wrote a love letter to. I was too ashamed to like ask her out. So I wrote a letter to her. And I get out of class, and that damn letter had been passed around the entire courtyard. And everyone's laughing. And I'm like, oh, this is not fun. And I couldn't go anywhere. I'm at school. And now I've got class with these, kids next. And it's just getting passed around and you're getting laughed at. And you're like, okay, well, I never want to feel like this again. And the next day, she ends up going out with one of my best friends, Mark. Mark was a foot taller, had another 50 pounds on him, played any position he wanted to on the football field, was strong as hell. And I was like, well, this is what girls want. So I started working out. I ate terribly, so nothing really came of it. And then fast forward 2 years, was terrified of talking to girls. But fast forward 2 years, I took some stupid class, man, called Family and Careers. And I did it for 2 reasons. One, it was almost all girls. And 2, there was a cooking portion of it. And I like to cook. So I'm taking this class, and we watched this movie about eating disorders. And I see this, they're reenacting some girl having bulimia, and I'm like, wait a minute, you can eat whatever you want and then throw it all up and you lose weight. Well, I can't lose weight as it is right now, so this sounds fun, because I just had no self-discipline. And so I went down that journey for like 2 years, and then I got thin, hit a growth spurt, and now all of a sudden I was more attractive to females. And I did weight training, but I was so weak because I was throwing up all the damn time. I couldn't gain any muscle or anything. And around this time, I also became a class clown because I didn't want anyone to laugh at me. I wanted them to laugh with me. And so that was just, more armor that I was piling on, and I was getting attention for it. And then I became a cocky asshole to other people. Again, just armor, coping mechanisms. I didn't want to get bullied. I'd rather bully other people. And then, fast forward, I remember dating some girl, and we went to a concert, and some guy like whistled at her, told her she was hot. And I was like, I'm going to whoop this guy's ass. And she looked at me and she's like, I could whip your ass. And I was like, what? She's like, yeah, you're like 140 pounds. And I was like, oh my. So I'm not even kidding. The next day, I'm on bodybuilding.com buying supplements from a company that does not exist anymore called Legal Gear. And I went to the gym every day. And within 12 weeks, if this tells you anything why they're not around anymore, I gained 25 pounds. And then I started getting a different kind of attention from people. And then that manifested itself in, an addiction to working out for the longest time in my life. And then at one point I remember, I won't say who he was, but very close to me, told me if my father was still around, I could have learned a lot from him and actually done something in my life and made some real money. And I'm like, how do people say this kind of shit to other people? But at the time, I didn't think it really affected me, but it did. And then it was all about the pursuit of money and more and material things to show people that you've made it, which the reality is that's not making it. And that's just part of it. So now that I fast forward and look at myself now, I'm like, man, like this makes sense why you've been pursuing all these things and acting this way. And again, that's just part of it. So I think, I'm grateful for starting to go on this journey and realize these things and realize that a lot of who I am is who I've become from traumas, but it's not really who I am deep down inside. And candidly, I've been avoiding reading some books that have been shared with me about going through this journey. And I just started 2 days ago. And so powerful. And I'll make sure we put them in the show notes if anybody else is interested in reading them. But I would encourage anybody, if you're not feeling really fulfilled and something always seems off and you've got these constant coping mechanisms that are not healthy, like figure that out. It's coming from somewhere. And, and for me, it's been either a constant pursuit of perfection in everything that I do. Like I've said this for years, like anything that I ever do, I will be better than most because I don't want to fail. But the second I fail, I take it so hard and am so nasty to myself internally. I end up numbing that with alcohol and extreme spending and other kind of things. And, as I've looked around recently in my life, I'm like, man, this isn't what life's supposed to be about. So
it's incredibly powerful, man. There's a lot of similarities that I kind of draw from your story. It's just hard because I think for me anyways, right? I think that if I were to be vulnerable, and this is kind of like an old way of thinking, but if I felt like if I was vulnerable and shared like my deepest, insecurities, that I was weak, right? And I think a lot of it stems from your childhood, and without really interrupting that pattern and looking at like, hey, how did my childhood affect my life and how can I overcome those challenges and obstacles so that doesn't affect my future? You have to do it. Otherwise things will never change. And there's been times, man, where, like you, I've felt like, I've needed to hide it or build armor and do all these things when in all reality, it's so not healthy.
No.
I mean, it's interesting because, I've known you for a few years now. And I think that I don't know you super well, but I know you well enough. But like, just to hear that, I'm like, okay, wow. Like now I really understand sort of why you are the way you are. And that's not in a bad way, but it's like, wow, man, like, okay, so you've had this, since seventh grade or since childhood, had this strive to perfection where it's like, how can I appear to others on the outside?
Yeah.
And I think that, and I don't know for our listeners here, but that certainly resonates with me because in my childhood, I certainly had to do the same thing. How did I appear to other people? But really, like, am I being honest with myself?
Yeah. Well, I think, and something that was asked of me earlier this year that like really rocked me. And this is when you know that you've just completely lost your way from yourself. And he said, most men don't even have hobbies. And I'm like, I do. I go to the gym. And it's like, that's not a hobby. That's something that you should just do because you need to. And then I was like, well, and then here's the coping mechanism that kicks in. I need a hobby. So I went out and bought kayaks and rode those one time, and then went and got a drone and flew that 3 times. And it was this constant pursuit of trying to find something that was cool that other people would think is cool. And I mean, even to this day, I'm like, what do I really like to do just by myself? And then I realized in that moment that I don't like to do anything by myself, because if I'm just sitting in a moment of myself, then those demons start coming out of the basement. And I've been trying to avoid that. And all I want to do at the end of the day is come out on the other side of this thing and see what it's like for the first time in a hot minute to actually just be me. And I think there'll be something super powerful from it, because I think that we all waste so much energy wearing a mask where, I mean, and I've done it in corporate world and all these kind of things. Like you can go out and speak on the stage and do all the things because you have to, but when you're done, you're exhausted because all that was just not real. And so it's been I don't know, man. It's again, it's liberating. Like I feel some weight lifted off me, but at the same time, like I said in the beginning, it's also heavy at the same time.
Well, I'm excited, man. I'm excited for you to, start this journey. I know 75 Hard's a good program for us. I'm doing it as well for the second time with Dustin. And I know that, I was just sharing before this podcast that, after, 3 or 4 days in, I already feel like lighter. I mean, it's crazy how you just notice your body change. But yeah, man, I'm excited to, start this journey with you and see how, mentally you adapt and change over the coming months, with all this outside help. I guess for anybody listening, how would you initially look at yourself and say, hey, these are the things that I need to improve on? Like being honest with yourself. Like, is there any sort of advice that you can give maybe to the listener, saying like, okay, if there's any piece of advice that I could give you, here's how to start on that transformational journey from within?
Yeah. I don't know if I would focus on the things you need to improve on, because I think when I think of improvements, I think of, weight loss, learn a new thing, all that kind of stuff. And that's not what this really needs to be. I think one exercise that was just shared with me recently that I think would help people is start journaling, and start journaling by writing, I remember when. And just the first thing that comes to mind. And if it's, I remember when I was 4 years old and my dad used to just sit on the couch and drink all day. Like, man, well, how did that make you feel now? I mean, back then you didn't know. It was just life. But I think if you start doing that, that'll definitely help. But I really think, one of the challenges also is if you look at some of and most of us lie to ourselves, but some of the negative habits that we have in life. Like if you've got to go home and drink every day, even if it's 2 beers, why do you have to go home and drink every day? What are you trying to numb? And it's hard, I believe, for most everyone to be honest enough with themselves about those things. But if you can journal, if you can have some quiet time and be truly honest with yourself about things that you don't enjoy, and then start going through, some of the timeline of traumas that you've been in. And, and I'm like you, when you had mentioned that you just kind of put that stuff away and it makes you weak if you bring it up. But I think honestly, it makes you weaker and a shell of a person over time if you don't go through that. And I was the same way. I remember when people would bring up, oh, I go to therapy. I'm like, why the hell do you go to therapy? Just get over it. Like, pack it deep down and move on. And it's just not healthy. So, I mean, journal, look at the habits that you don't like about yourself and ask why. And then get some help. I mean, I mean, and not everyone is going to be great at helping, to be fair. Because I had mentioned early on that I've had some coaches, and I will say that, and just touching the surface on working with the gentleman that I've been working with, he even mentioned it, that most coaches just work on the superficial stuff. They don't actually go down within and help you unpack the traumas and the pain and get through those and come out on the other side. And then that's when you start working on some of the other things. Because if you just work on superficial all the time, you'll never be fulfilled with anything that you do.
100%. I mean, dude, I started reading Jake's book, Let Love In, I think it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, like, first 30, 40 pages in, I'm already like, dude, there's so much in this that already speaks to me. And it's
right.
fucking crazy.
Right.
It's crazy how, because I think he's just sharing what most guys think and feel, being vulnerable about it and writing it down on paper for, the whole world to sort of read. And that's hard for a lot of, I don't want to just say dudes. I want to say people. I think it's hard for anybody, but especially men, like, because we're supposed to be the providers, the protectors, and sort of expected to be like these strong beings and not have any emotions, like you said, just pack it in. But dude, it's like just going through the first 30, 40 pages, like I said, it's like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things that I need to do just for myself to show up as a better person.
Yeah. Same here, man. When he talks about in the book, he's at Santa Monica Beach walking his friend's dog and then just breaks down. Dude, I remember the first time that I completed 75 hard and I was doing my last exercise of the day, and it was a 5-mile run. And I don't know if it was jokingly or people know if they tell me I can't do something, it pushes me over the line and I'll do it. And I'm not a runner by any stretch. And I'm coming up on the last maybe quarter mile and I'm listening to a song and I just start freaking crying. And I get to the end with my running partner, Trevor, and he's like, bro, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, fuck all y'all. I did it. But I'm like, why? I shouldn't have been like emotional about that, but there I was again, just trying to prove myself to other people. And that's just something that I need to figure out. I need to be doing it for me and for the right reasons, not because I'm trying to prove people wrong my whole life prove people wrong.
So what's next, man? What's next on the journey?
Oh man. I mean, get through this, try to understand who I really am, embrace the pains, forgive some people in my life, and not really for them, but for me. Because, I heard today that, or was asked the question, like, do you believe this person is evil or do you believe they're empty? I was like, well, I believe they're empty. And he's like, yeah, well, evil people have options and they continue to do things. Empty people, they think they're doing the right thing from time to time, and all they're doing is just causing chaos all around them. And it's like, I think you need to forgive this person. And I was like, I don't want to let them back in my life. And he's like, no, not back in your life, but forgive them for you and truly forgive them. And because they've been through a lot of traumas too, and they've just dealt with them differently. And it's like, well, and as I'm leaving this meeting, I've got, water in my eyes, and he's like, man, I didn't mean to do this to you. I'm like,
that's making me tear up, dude.
This is good. but it's true, man. I mean, like, you look at people in your life who have hurt you and you've never walked in their shoes. And yeah, I mean, the hurt doesn't go in which they did to you, and yeah, it wasn't right and everything else, but you've never walked in their shoes. And sure, their behavior was wrong and all these things. And as I was explaining these stories of this person, like it made me mad all over again. But then to think for just a second that like, hey, maybe the reason that they're like this is because they are so empty. They have no fulfillment whatsoever. They have no family because they've pushed everybody away. And now the reason that their coping mechanism is pills and all these other things, like I would hate to be in that spot. And then when you start thinking about their story, you're like, man, that's a sad story. Like that's not like, oh, they're just this horrible thing. That's just sad. And it's sad to see somebody so empty and so unfulfilled. And so, yeah, I've got some,
Are you talking about someone in my life, man? Because, dude, everything that you just said, I was like, there's one person in particular that I'm thinking about. But yeah, I mean, yeah, go ahead.
No, you're good.
It's a heavy session, but I love having tough conversations like this. Like you said, it's not easy, but you almost feel like a sense of weight has been lifted just by having, tough conversations like this and yeah, looking at your life and how it could be improved. Because I mean, if you're not happy or if there's things that make you mad or upset or sad quite frequently, then there's definitely something that I think needs to be fixed or at least recognized.
Yeah. Well, and the one other thing that I've realized lately is a lot of times the thing that we're trying to avoid or the behaviors that other people in our lives have spilled over and upset us, when we're trying to avoid those the most, sometimes we become them. And it's like, did I become this like version of myself because of you or despite you? And I don't know, I think just the self-awareness to know these things and go down this journey. I'm excited. I wish I would have done it a long, long time ago, but I've got a long way to go and a lot of baggage to get through, and hopefully I come out the other side a lot better.
Yeah. And Jake, if you're listening, man, I would love to at some stage do a seminar or something with you, man. I think, his book's incredible. I think I'm also an Enneagram type 7, so a lot of similarities there. Pretty sure. But yeah, dude, I think powerful stuff today.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Well, sorry to go all heavy on you guys today, but I hope this was eye-opening and awakening. And again, if you guys have questions or maybe this, resonated with you in some way or another, let's chat. Let's just have a conversation. Dustin and I are like an open book. So if there's anything that you guys want to know about us or maybe had questions based on today's podcast, like please reach out. Thanks again for tuning in to Life by the Horns. If you could please like, subscribe, share with your family and friends. Maybe that this episode will help anyone in your family or your friend network get through some things. We'd love that. Again, appreciate your time today, guys, and we will see you in the next episode.
See you guys.
Bye, guys.